Well, welcome back to the Twin Rivers Gospel Podcast. I'm your host today, Joshua Claycamp, pastor at First Baptist Church, and this podcast is a ministry of First Baptist Church. We appreciate so much all of our listeners across Canada and the United States, but today we're talking a little bit more local. And the reason for that is because we have a local municipal election coming up this Saturday, October the 15th. And we're joined today by Mrs. Jennifer Rowse, who is running for SD 73. That is, she's running to be a trustee for the school district, the board of trustees for the local school district. And the reason why we wanted to have Jennifer on today is to talk about her views regarding SOGI 123. We have 10 candidates running for SD 73. There are only 5 seats open, so roughly 5 of those 10 are going to be elected. But the reason we wanted to talk to Jennifer today is because she takes a little bit of a contrarian position on the issue of SOGI 123. And for those of you who may not be familiar, I'll just give you a little bit of background. The previous provincial government under the BC Liberals, being led by the premier at that time, Christy Clark, implemented a curriculum known as SOGI 123 that was mandated in all public schools as well as private schools that received government funding. It was a part of the BC Ministry of Education's mandated sexual orientation. What SOGI stands for is sexual orientation and gender identity. And the idea is that there are students within our public schools who identify as LGBTQ or who may consider themselves trans or experience what is known as gender dysphoria. That is, they don't feel comfortable being a boy or a girl that is the gender that was assigned at birth. I think this is the politically correct terminology for it. And so this curriculum is intended to raise awareness through education so that these students won't inevitably be bullied or in any way isolated at school. But the question remains whether or not this curriculum is actually helpful, whether or not it is a good thing to have implemented. It is taught currently in public school all the way from kindergarten to grade 12. And so of all the different candidates that are running for SD 73, Ms. Rowse is the only one that does not support SOGI 123, and this is an issue that is important to us as Christians. And so we thought we'd have Jennifer on today to just kind of talk with us a little bit about that issue. First off, Jennifer, let me just say thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And I definitely want to get into your views on SOGI 123, but I thought first we'd just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and what prompted you to really start getting involved in this particular election?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I have 2 children that are in the public school system for the next 10 years. So I'm heavily invested in what they're learning and what's being taught. I would really like to see, like you said, the removal of sexual indoctrination. We moved here from Abbotsford, in a bad part in Abbotsford, last year. We actually drove up in August when there were fires on both sides of the highway.
An exciting time to move. Hey?
Yeah, and I was just thinking, oh my word, did I do the wrong thing? Like, is this the right thing to do? And you know, we bought our house when it was just a piece of land and it was beautiful, overlooking the lake and the sports facilities. It was hard to say no, and it was actually funny because I usually like to take my time and think about big choices like buying a house and moving away from family. But God kind of spoke to me because we were at our last place for about 5 years, and I really wanted out of there. And he was like, "My daughter, I'm giving you an out. Take it." So I took it. I was like, yeah, 100%. Let's do this. My husband was kind of shocked, but yeah, no regrets.
All right. And here you are in Kamloops. And how have you enjoyed the city so far?
Oh, we love it. We're kind of removed because we're in Tobiano, so we're 20 minutes from the kids' school and from Costco. But we are removed from the hard parts that I was experiencing so up and close in Abbotsford. So I realized that they have the crime and everything as well in Kamloops. I don't think we're getting away from that anytime soon, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to live.
It sure is, yeah. Lived here for about 14, 15 years now, and it's just a fantastic city. I love the community. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about your views on SOGI 123. there's a lot of anecdotal stories that are told regarding students or families that have been exposed to the SOGI curriculum, or been exposed to some sort of teaching on this issue from a teacher in the public education system. We hear anecdotal stories, but we don't actually really see a lot of this in terms of the reporting in the media. Very rarely are there ever any accounts that are reported on in terms of journals and various media publications. And I guess my question is, do you think that the reason for this is media bias? Or do you think that perhaps there might be laws in terms of confidentiality having to do with minors and that sort of thing? All that to say, what is your view on the lack of reporting on this issue?
I think all of the above, everything that you currently just listed. I have had my own personal experiences with the media, and they do kind of paint a picture how they want to, unfortunately. So it's very one-sided. And then also for privacy reasons, I don't think that families are even allowed to really speak up about this. I do have some people that have come to me and in my inbox and said, hey, like, this is our family. Like, we are going through this right now. I have friends that are going through this exact thing. And it's kind of, it's affecting, but people aren't willing to step up and speak up until they feel like it's justified. Like, they're not crazy. They're not losing their mind.
Could there be some benefit, like from your perspective? Obviously, you're a Christian mom and you're a big fan of parental rights and all of that, but couldn't there be some benefit perhaps to not disclosing information to mom and dad at home? I mean, maybe parents really are guilty of trying to dominate their kids. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that?
That's a really good question. With regarding to like dominate your children. Our old pastor, Mark Clark, used to have people come up to him and say, "Are you crazy? You're teaching your kids religion. You're forcing it on them." And his reaction is, "Well, if I don't, Miley Cyrus will." Like,
yeah.
And so I feel like it's our job as parents to not only protect, but to shepherd our kids. And so with that being said, I feel that there should always be an open communication from parent to child. Mm-hmm. There should be transparency there. And I work very hard at building that relationship with my own two boys. I want them to, when they're ever in a problem, instead of saying, "Oh no, my mom's going to be so mad at me," I want them to say, "I have to call my mom. She's going to help me through this." Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. Culture, society at large is always exerting an influence. Everybody has a perspective, and everybody's seeking to promote that perspective. And so I think it's a bit of just a one-sided, it's a bit hypocritical to say, Christians are forcing their views on kids. I think that there's a legitimate point that you're making when you say that everybody's trying to force a view of some kind, right? And the question is, if as you put it, Miley Cyrus is pushing something, why can't mom and dad push something as well, right? And that kind of comes back to the biblical mandate to honor your father and your mother, the fifth commandment. At the end of the day, the school district or the school administrator, the principal or the teachers, they're not the ones saving money for this kid to go to university. They're not putting money away into a bank account. And they're not going to be the one coaching them, when they go for their first job interview and all that kind of stuff. And so do you think that perhaps with school administrators seeking to withhold information from parents and trying to create this zone, this what they would refer to as a safe place in the public school system where students can have conversations and interactions with teachers and school administrators that students know will not be reported or shared with mom and dad. Do you think that perhaps there could be an element of that is undermining the nuclear family, the traditional family? And what are your thoughts in terms of could there be like a far greater harm long term to the culture, to the fabric of our society by continuing to undermine parental authority? Just kind of share what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think you know how I feel on that. I understand and I want to sympathize because I know not all children have both a mom and a dad at
Right.
home. So I am fully aware, and I do feel like children deserve to be supported. However, bringing this back, I feel like there should always be full transparency, and parents are the best teachers. No offense to the teachers. I love my kids' CEAs, and the teachers that we've been blessed to have just been amazing. The only problem with them is that we can't clone them.
Right.
They're amazing. But with that being said, like, I don't think that it's right to keep secrets from parents and children. You know what, as a kid, I remember when my parents had that talk with me. They sat me down and they went over my body and they said, you know, these are the parts that people aren't supposed to touch, and this is privacy, and if anybody ever does that, you tell us. And then my mom sat me down and she told me about becoming a woman and a menstrual cycle. So she was the one that provided that safe space for me. And I am just asking for that same opportunity with my children.
For the school to give you that,
exactly.
to let you establish that safe space as a parent.
Yeah, so the opportunity to either opt in or opt out of certain classes, but this isn't a curriculum. This is not a class. This is not a presentation in the gym. This is whatever you want to call it, that's kind of sprinkled into the current existing classes. Mm-hmm. So there's really no way to opt in or opt out.
Right. But I guess coming back to the question of LGBTQ and SOGI 123, do you think it's actually harmful? I mean, we hear these anecdotal stories, but do you think it's, from a medical, psychological perspective, do you think that there's actual harm that's coming to the student as a result of encouraging and pushing like SOGI 123 ideology?
Yeah, it's planting the seed 100%. You're literally telling lies to children. If you tell a little boy that he can be a girl, it's not possible. You're lying.
You mean them. From a biological?
Yes,
okay.
100%. Like, God made us in his image and how he made us. Like, he didn't make a mistake. So there are some days where I could be like, oh, I look so pretty today. Like, I love my hair or something. I look gorgeous, you know, feminine. And then there are some days where I'm like, oh, I'm wearing sweatpants, you know, like I kind of don't feel as pretty or feminine. Like, but at the end of the day, I still know that I'm a woman.
Right.
And so the thing that strikes me is my son, my second son, he is chronologically 6 years old. But mentally, he's operating at a level of the age 3. Okay. So, and he's nonverbal. He can't come home and tell me what he learned today. So where does that put those kids?
From a school administrator's perspective, I mean, they've been pushing this sort of approach for like the last 30 years. And even at the most recent forum for candidates running for SD 73, the response from one of the candidates when asked about the SOGI curriculum was that there are LGBTQ students in the schools, and that these are students who feel isolated, and we have to teach this curriculum in order to help them feel accepted. You know, and so in your viewpoint, like, is that a good motivation? Do you take issue with that? I mean, how do you respond to that?
Is it effective? Is it actually making them feel more included? Because last I checked, their suicide rate was quite high.
Okay.
And I think that it's kind of outrageous to say that a person's choice depends on society. That's kind of giving society a whole lot of power, and I don't necessarily know that this is indeed a problem with the lack of love and acceptance from others, more so than a lack of self-love and acceptance and identity in oneself.
So, and again, I don't have the research in front of me, but you're saying that there hasn't been a meaningful, you know, we've been pushing this curriculum for however many years now, but you're saying there hasn't been a noticeable or measurable something that we can empirically assess, there has been a noticeable drop in terms of suicide or depression, and that's mental health concerns regarding students who identify as LGBTQ?
I don't believe so. That's one of their focus points is, and you can go on the SOGI website and see exactly for yourself. That is one of their focus points.
Sure.
Is that the suicide rate is so high, and okay, maybe my approach is a bit different, but just because it's different doesn't mean that it's wrong. So I feel like treating the actual student and the actual person rather than society. Like my kid could think he's a dog, and so I can give him a bowl on the floor to eat off of, and he can bark and at the mailman. Am I supposed to go to the mailman and tell the mailman to be afraid of my son?
Right.
Like how far are we going? And is it helpful? Is that truly loving these children? I actually don't agree. I think there are other ways that we can love those children and support them.
Okay. Why do you think administrators keep pushing? I mean, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it seems to me that sort of LGBTQ inclusive teaching or education of some form has been happening for, I don't know, I want to say like 25, 30 years. I feel like going back to the mid-90s or so. And so if it's true, what you say, that there's not been a noticeable or appreciable drop in suicide or depression or mental health concerns, why do you think school administrators keep advocating for just more of this type of material?
I honestly, I don't fully understand it, because as far as I'm aware, they're not allowed to give a child an aspirin if they have a headache. So how they're allowed to have these confidential private conversations and suggest puberty blockers, for example. If you look online, you can see some stories where children have spoken out. Children that we're speaking about right now in these situations that have had top surgery and that have been on the hormones. And I think it's almost like a celebration. Like what you're doing needs to be celebrated. You're so strong and brave for standing up and taking ownership of yourself. And who doesn't want that kind of support,
Yeah.
right? So a young child, our children are the most impressionable people in our society. Let's be real. And so they want that celebration. They want people to love them and accept them. But if you do look, there are some cases where these children have been through that and they now regret it. You can't undo it. So with that being said, if in the eyes of the BC law, like if you look at the BC website, you have to be 19 to buy alcohol,
Okay.
to buy smokes,
That's a great point.
to vote.
Yeah.
So the government recognizes an adult to be anybody over the age of 19.
Right.
So why are we giving children the ability to make such huge, drastic life changes? Children are not known for making good choices.
Oh, sure. That's a great point. Yeah.
Bless their hearts. But if you ask my kids what they want for breakfast, they're going to be like a big tub of ice cream.
Right.
They're children. You can almost count on them to make bad choices because they're still learning. Their brains are literally still developing. You know, they're not going to say, well, you know, I need some healthy, nutritious food to break this 14-hour fast.
Right.
They're not going to say that. They're children. And so I feel like as parents and as teachers, administrators, we need to support them. We need to support them long term, because I feel like the studies have suggested that this short term, you know, getting behind them and everything, that's only helping them temporarily. Right. Is that long term?
Right. Is that really what's in their best interests for the entirety of the future that is in front of them? How does Jesus influence you? You're saying that you can't hide that, and you're not going to deny that or disavow that. But I guess I'm looking for more clarity around that fine line.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I did previously say that I do have my own faith, but I don't believe whatever faith that that would be for the moment. I don't believe that should be spouted in public schools. I just don't. I don't believe, and if I'm going to be truthful and transparent with you, I almost feel like this topic of the SOGI 123, it's almost like a cult.
Like a religion unto itself.
Yeah, it's almost, and I feel like that's why people are coming to attack, because their identity is rooted in that. My identity is rooted in Jesus. So nobody can take that from me. And
Okay.
I think they see this as a threat because they see a hateful person who's trying to take away their identity, and that is absolutely not true. I raise my children to be kind and compassionate and caring individuals to all people. And if I'm going to say something, I feel like there has been a lot of bullying from the other direction towards me, which kind of helps me sleep well at night, knowing that I feel like I'm on the right side here.
Okay.
I'm right with God, but I'm wrong with the world, and that's okay. I don't consciously go out of my way to spew hateful, hurtful things to other people. Yeah, and then also I feel like when you say that you believe in God, people hear you say, I am God. That's not what I said. Just because I follow someone who is perfect doesn't mean that I am perfect.
Okay.
And I felt this long before this whole election thing. I feel like people just expect you to be perfect, and I'm not perfect, and I have made mistakes, and I will make mistakes, and and forgive me, please, for those mistakes that I have made. I have not made them purposely to hurt others.
Right. We've really hammered the SOGI 123 issue pretty thoroughly, and I want to just say I'm grateful for you coming on our podcast to kind of elaborate on your views on that. But I also just want to give you the opportunity, if we just zoom out for a moment, kind of step back from just that issue of SOGI. I think that issue has kind of sucked the oxygen out of the conversation because you're the only one that opposes it. But in terms of the larger dynamics for SD 73, what are some of your biggest dreams for our school district? What would you like to see happen? Obviously you oppose SOGI 123, but other issues, right? What do you want to see happen for SD 73?
Right. So I feel like children are so innocent, and it's our job to protect them. Ideally, our children would just be children. For the past few years, their lives have been faced with COVID and illness, and I'd like to focus on health, being healthy and preparing our children for the future. I would like more transparency, and I don't think that that's asking too much.
Okay.
I'm talking transparency from the government to the school board to the principals to the parents to the children, just all being open and honest. A lot of kids, when you ask them, what did you learn today? What do they say? Nothing. I don't know. I don't remember.
Right.
So I feel like that the whole transparency thing, if they're going to do some sort of controversial topic, giving parents a warning ahead of time is complete respect in my books.
Sure.
And I would also like to focus on really teaching our kids to be prepared for the future. And that looks different because every kid's mission in life is different.
Sure.
So really hone in on the things that our children are good at and embrace it and support it. And right now it looks like our firstborn son is going to be a little entrepreneur because he is all about making money and running businesses.
Okay, well, there you go.
And so I've kind of harnessed that, and I feel like it would be nice for the schools to kind of prepare our students for the future. I do know that not every child does have a mom and a dad, and there are even exchange students where their parents are so far away. I would like to see them really shepherded and guided through the transition of high school to work or university or both. Kind of fill the gaps, because I feel like parents, they do the best with what they have, but not everybody is great with finances. Not everybody knows how to fix a flat tire. Not everybody knows how to do their taxes.
Right.
I don't. I pay somebody to. So I feel like
Absolutely,
we have to teach our kids.
Absolutely.
You're either going to do it yourself and learn, or you're going to pay someone.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, I just want to say thank you once again. I give you the last word. If there's anything you want to just speak to that, is outside of any question or any topic I've touched on, by all means, just share whatever you'd like to share with our audience.
Okay, well, I think I've talked your ear off the last hour. So I will say just thank you. Thank you for having me, and I hope that everybody gets out there and votes. It's October 15th, and your vote matters.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Twin Rivers Gospel Podcast. There's no part of society, no part of the human soul over which Jesus Christ does not declare, this is mine, it belongs to me. And one of the things we just want to leave you with, if you struggle with feelings of being unsatisfied with life, questioning your meaning, questioning your purpose, or even deeper, if you understand and recognize that you have guilt and that there's shame in your heart as a result of something you've done wrong, the Bible calls this sin. And there is a solution. And that solution has a name, and his name is Jesus Christ. And we would love the opportunity to share with you about the gospel. The good news is that there's a God in heaven who loves you and who sent his son Jesus to die for you. And our prayer is that you would come to know him in a personal way and receive from him reconciliation with the Heavenly Father and forgiveness of your sins. If you'd like to know more about that, by all means, reach out to us via email or call us up at the church at 250-828-6222. Again, we want to just say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Twin Rivers Gospel Podcast, and hopefully we'll see you around. But you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.